Welcome, everyone. This webinar is a briefing of the sensitive information sharing environment being developed by federal, state, and local government, as well as the private sector under the All Hazards Consortium. I'm Tom Moran. I'll be your host and presenter today. I'm really glad to have you folks on the call. Sherry Stone and I met 2 years ago, I think, Sherry, at a Department of Energy exercise. And I knew the minute I met Sherry, she wanted to fix some problems. So I said, okay, so we exchanged cards, and it's been a wonderful dialogue ever since. So Sherry, let me invite you to provide just some opening comments here, and then we can jump into our content for today.
Thanks, Tom. And I feel likewise. Tom is definitely a person who wants to get things done, and he does do that. He gets things done quickly and efficiently. So PMAA has subscribed to AHC, the All Hazards Consortium, which is SISE is part of that. We've officially subscribed as of this month, I believe, but we have been working together, like Tom said, for the past 2 years. I think there's just so much potential for our partnership, and I'm hoping people will see that when you see this briefing. Thanks, okay. Tom.
Great, thank you, Sherry. Let me go ahead and jump into our content today. So if you're new to the SISE or the consortium, we'll provide some background. But one of the things we want to make sure you leave today with is we want you to learn about this new, unique community of operations professionals, state, federal, and commercial. No regulators, no media. It's very nice. And they plan together, they problem solve, they produce new solutions, they conduct research, and they have joint investments. The other thing you're going to learn today is you're going to learn how to access this community if you want to. This has unique solutions that are sector focused. We hope we can have enough subscribers from the fuel sector. We can work on some unique ones there. We've certainly been working with the electric sector and states over the past many years. Also access more reliable and actual information. This is very important. Getting access to the right information is critical, and the SISE does that for you. Having others solve some of your operational issues. If you're in the fuel sector, the electric sector has paved the ground here for about 80 solutions they work on, and some of those you can tap into as a subscriber down the road. We leverage federal investments. You'll see kind of how that works, but the federal government has been trying to solve a lot of these operational issues, and it's very difficult at the federal level to do that without the states and industry involved, and they know that. And that's why they're investing heavily in the SISE and its partner organizations. So let's jump into our agenda. We're just going to touch a little background, talk about what the problem is. What is the big issue facing fuel sector and other sectors? What is the SISE, the Sensitive Information Sharing Environment? What are its tools? Some of the results, what's coming, very exciting technology development there, and how to engage. So you're all on mute at the moment. So once we wrap up, we'll unmute everybody for questions and comments, but this will allow me just to kind of float through the information very quickly. So my name's Tom Moran. I serve as the executive director. I came out of the private sector. I'm with the All Hazards Consortium. I spent my career in communications, retired in 2003, and was asked by some of the states if I could help them in this multi-state initiative out of Washington, D.C., Virginia, and Maryland. I told him, sure, I'd be glad to. It was a new adventure for me, new adventure for me. But along the way, I met some fantastic people that are all problem solvers in government and in the private sector. This is a smidgen of the 15,000 that are involved in the All Hazards Consortium now. These are some of our board members, some of our working group members, public and private. And I got to tell you, they are some of the best reasons that I do what I do. So I'm an engineer by training. I'm an entrepreneur. I love to solve problems. And when someone says it can't be done, these are the kinds of people along with me say, no, let's not just take that for granted. Let's try to actually fix something. So what the SISE is all about are the people. Without the people, without the trust framework, none of this would happen, and that's what makes it sustain. So first, let me just touch on who is the All Hazards Consortium. The AHC is a 14, 15-year-old nonprofit 501c3. It forms a trusted community and plays the role of a liaison between states and industry, which is hard for states to do because of turnover and perceived conflicts and things like that. We focus on disaster management, integrated planning, and operational problem solving. We leverage federal investments. We've done that for many years over with FEMA and Department of Energy and NASA and NOAA and DHS. And we are always a source for new, more reliable, better organized information and experts for the private sector. The private sector is a very difficult time, as I did, dealing with government because of the turnover and the bureaucracy and so forth. The consortium kind of cuts through that, not on everything, but on many things. So what we try to do is sync government and private sector on many things. We work at the operational level. It's very important. We don't work in the regulatory side. We don't work with public relations, although sometimes we get involved with public relations, but we try to bridge operators, you all, with operators, your peers in state and yes, federal government. Federal government has many operations people, and they're just like you all. They want to solve problems, and sometimes they can't get the bureaucracy out of the way fast enough to really solve an issue, and that's where they come to the All Hazard Consortium and our framework, because we can move quicker and we give everybody kind of plausible deniability in a sense. So we sync operations across multiple sectors. This is a big gap. We started first focusing on electric in 2013. That quickly led to transportation and communications. Then in 2016, 17, food, fuel, lodging, and others came on board. And most importantly is, how do we connect those to state operations people? Those are the people in the state. Their job is to make your businesses come back online quicker, to get distribution happening faster. Many times they don't know what you need, and that's what the SISE does. It creates a pathway to do that. So what's the problem? The problem is this: disasters and disruptions continue to happen, and they're getting more. Companies need to make decisions quicker because of the cascading impacts that happen, and the fact that the time is compressed with the amount of, when disaster strikes, you have to do it quicker. So all of a sudden, decision makers got to make decisions that based on social media and regular media and peers. It's coming at them so fast they can't even react to it. Decision makers tell us all the time, we don't need more data and more tools. We need better, more reliable data. We need it better organized, and we need it from vetted sources. So we want to make sure that the information coming to us in these tools and dashboards and things are vetted, reliable, and from a reliable source. The big one is the fear of sharing sensitive information. We learn this in the electric sector, and certainly in the gas and oil and fuel sector. Any sector that's heavily regulated, there's always concern both ways from government and private sector to share sensitive operational information. Well, the SISE was developed just for that. So let me give you a story, true story. December 2013, huge ice storm hit Texas and Oklahoma. Electric fleets started moving from all over the country, and they were facing all kinds of roadblocks, if you will, at way stations, at toll stations. It was just a lot going on, and they asked the consortium to help notify the states that, hey, these trucks are coming. Can you get them through these pass-through states into Texas and Oklahoma quickly? Well, we learned very quickly that information was kind of operationally sensitive. And sure enough, it leaked out. The wrong people got it, and it caused some issues. So we learned very quickly that we got to protect this information. For example, utility trucks don't want people to know where their fleets are because people rob the trucks when they park at a hotel, steal copper. They'll do all kinds of things like that. Most of the utilities have issues with that. So what we did was we started looking at how do we solve it. So this solution I'm going to show you today has been evolving really since 2008. FEMA invested over $100 million over 6 years for an integrated planning program. The consortium was involved in that, as were many other areas. We took the best of breed projects from that. We took that and melded it into another issue which happened in 2013 when the electric sector formed the Fleet Response Working Group under the consortium. We used the same principles and contacts from the 2008 FEMA projects, and we roll it into this regional coordinated calls, trying to go back to address this issue, this use case right here I just showed you, right? So we had national coordination calls with each region, and that started in 2013. That didn't go so well. As a matter of fact, it was a nightmare. We had all kinds of technical issues. The private sector chair who was running the call, his microphone got muted. He couldn't talk. No one could hear him. It was really a cluster. So we decided in 2014 we're going to do emails with attachments. So we put together an elaborate spreadsheet and timing of where these trucks are, where they're going to be. So each state would kind of have an idea of when those fleets would hit their border. They could expedite them through or give them police escort. And sure enough, those emails weren't secure. The attachments got leaked out to media, and it caused another issue. So then we had to go to our federal partners and say, look, can you help us? So in 2015, DHS Science and Technology funded a pilot project where we used a high-grade PII credential, and we encrypted emails and documents. Worked beautifully, but the states couldn't scale or afford it. These credentials required special technology. Everybody that was part of that had to go to an airport and get a fingerprint. It was like getting a TSA pre-badge, right? It's no fooling around. It was a high-grade credential, but it just wasn't scalable and practical for typical use. But that project gave birth to the SISE, the Sensitive Information Sharing Environment. A legal agreement was formed. A committee was formed between states and utilities, and it started right there. So over in 2016, 17, and 18, DHS continued to fund the SISE through what they call a National Infrastructure Protection Program, or NIP, challenge program. The consortium was awarded about $1.4 million, and that really developed the policy, the process, the app store, the framework, the use cases, sustained the work groups, and really started allowing us to build use cases, or we call them use cases. They're really problem-solving committees, but we build a use case template so it's written down. Fast forward to today, state, federal government, and industry continue to support and sustain the SISE, its work groups, and continue to develop new solutions. So the SISE has been in development for many years, but it's been built to solve operational problems in the private sector. We only do stuff that solves operational issues. So we're not interested in just meetings and white papers like that. We actually want to solve problems. And believe it or not, many people in government feel the same way, but government's just a little slower. They don't always know the problem. So this helps expedite that process. So what is the SISE? The SISE is a couple of components. One, it's a trusted community of people. It's people working together, trusting each other. Every Friday, we're on a phone call at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, every Friday. We have calls at 2:30 on Tuesdays with our states. We build these communities to solve these issues. We build legal and policy process. We protect information from FOIA. We do a lot of things that are required when you have public and private coming together. We develop solutions, or we find solutions and bring them into it along with tools and data. And then we work disaster coordination events when they happen on the East Coast. So we've been working with wildfires. Most of what we work on is on the kind of the Eastern U.S., but it really applies anywhere. We share data all over the country. So why is this important to the fuel sector? Let's get to the point. So in the fuel sector, we know from the past 10 years that you all struggle with many of the same issues they have in the electric sector and in comms. We want to first reduce transport delays, right? We need to coordinate disaster response. You need we need expedited waivers and declarations. We have a great partnership with our states. They get us the documents, official documents, signed documents, and we can get a heads up sometimes when they're going to release them 2 hours early. We get the heads up. We have a number of use cases. This is an example of how we do it, but the fuel sector is all about getting decks and waivers quickly, getting them out to you all so you can move and get your resources moving. But there's a number of other issues that come up. Sherry and I have talked about a number of them. We'll mention a few of them a little bit in just a minute. But these are just a few of the problems, but there are many more. And when working with our states, we prioritize these issues. We work on them one or two at a time, and we solve the problem. We put it in, come up with a solution. We put it in our app store, and then off we go. So how does the SISE work? So the SISE today, in its current form, we provide the legal framework. We run operational committees, work groups, events, and so forth. And we provide kind of a dashboard of kind of a cockpit of tools and data sets specifically designed for a specific problem. And we organize these committees by use case, right? So sometimes it's by sector, and sometimes it's by problem. We have an information sharing one. We have a GIS data committee. We formed a new lodging and fuel data committee. We got some new ones forming, one around FOIA protection, one is a research transition. This is some of them, it's not all of them. And some are really active, some are not as active, but most of these committees meet 6 times. They come up with a solution and they move forward and develop it. If they can't find anything to do in 6 calls, they end it. So we try to keep things moving very fast. The other thing we do very easily is we leverage federal investment. I think over the last, since really 2005, the consortium, we estimate, has leveraged somewhere around a couple $100 million of federal R&D, direct and indirect. We put that to work for our states and you all in the private sector that are our members. It's all about leveraging that research and technology to drive new tools, data sets, research, and build new use cases, solve the problems that you guys bring to the table. Let me give you a case study. In 2013, the electric sector came to the consortium and said, we want to form our own work group. We want to run it, but we want to do it underneath the consortium so we can work with states and be protected from FOIA. Okay, so they formed the work group in 2013. They developed their initial problem list. They formed committees. They started working on the solutions. They tested them. They perfected them and moved on to the next one. Here's a list of some of the very first use case lists they developed. And I will bet many of you in the fuel sector have the exact same problems. And I won't go into all of them, but these two categories or two columns of issues they were facing have all been resolved to different degrees, either through development of a data set or an app or a guide, an operational guide, or a dashboard. Every time we come up with a solution, it's not the end of the road. We continue developing these solutions as we go forward. So sorry, dropped my phone here. So they put these solutions in the App Store they developed as part of the DHS program. So the App Store provides members a single point of entry, and they get access to pretty much everything we develop: data sets, dashboards, apps, specific things. You may not even recognize some of these products and names, but we develop them very quickly. Sometimes you take a little bit longer, but it's kind of one place you go, and that's how the SISE is developed. And from there, we link to information, other third-party sites, and so forth. Let me talk about some of the sample solutions. The most popular, this is the current version of the dashboard. We're upgrading it again for 2020, but currently our most popular product is called our Daily Dashboard. It is, I'll go into each of these in detail. Secondly, we use our decision dashboards, which organize data in a real-time collaborative way. I'll show you our live state 511 transportation dashboard. It's a brand new one that merges all the state sites together. We have a Storm Central website that merges all the waivers and declarations. Road Central is our transportation information, and Resource Central is kind of a potluck website that, hey, we need everybody in the country that has commercial generators, rents them, and sells them. So I'll show you what this looks like. So the Regional Common Operating Picture Dashboard we use for every major storm since 2013. On this one dashboard, we merge federal and state waivers and declarations, guidance, we merge weather, we merge transportation, and we merge comments and active status. And it is a one-stop shop. Today, it's quite sophisticated. When we first started, it wasn't. But we pull together federal motor carrier waivers, state waivers, declarations. We do FEMA information, DHS information. The green states are the states that trucks are moving through, and we alert those states to say, hey, on this map, you got trucks flowing through your state. Be on the lookout so you can expedite them through any roadblocks or what have you. The purple states are covered by the federal motor carrier waiver, and the red states are the states who have declared. If you click on a red state, another window pops up, and there's the documents right there live. You can download them for your logistics folks or for the drivers. A new one, fairly new, this is our transportation dashboard. I'll come back to that in just a second. We work very closely with Esri, and we kind of built a portfolio of dashboards based on the electric sector use case. So all of these dashboards use the most reliable vetted data available today. We have a committee that vets those through a standard they've developed. And it allows people to come to this dashboard, 30 seconds, boom, they can make a decision. They don't have to understand it. They'll know exactly when they're looking at it. It's fantastic capability. We're really glad we have it. The other thing, too, is there's a national spelled wrong here. Pardon me. This is a site we built that merges all of the state 511 databases feeds into one place. Okay, it's an aggregated service, but prior to this, we had to go each state, turn it on, watch it, and had 5 or 6 folders open. Here on one screen, we can get live transportation data. This takes a lot of heat off of the states that phone calls and things that happen like that. We can alleviate a lot of that. The Storm Central website is where we use for the last maybe 4 years, 5 years, where we store all the declared storms for the fleet working group. All the data goes on there. It centralizes dozens and dozens of documents, guides, whatever. We update it daily, sometimes 3 or 4 times a day as states roll in. And you can see here down the middle, you can see Tropical Storm Barry and Ulmer and Harper and Diego. So we really track the hurricanes. Sometimes we do a lot of the winter storms, but it's one place, vetted information. It's reliable. It's the best you're going to get. Then we have another website called Road Central, where we keep track of other transportation-related resources. Some you may not have heard of, some you've heard of, but when we find one that's good, we'll put it in here as another type of resource. It might get a little more granular. These can range from DOT has a database of all their low bridges and tunnels. Okay, we got that. We put it in here. So that's for your route planning. You don't want to be slamming into low bridges and tunnels if you can avoid it. Our disaster, we call it Resources Central. This is a product that changes every storm. It basically is yellow pages for anyone who rents, sells, or provides any type of disaster response information, including fuel, right? The states use it, the feds are using it, the commercial folks use it, but it's one place, vetted information, all there. It's done through Esri and GIS maps. You can click on the dot, get the information, and go to it. This is all part of the SISE capability. So the App Store is kind of our central point of access. We starting to use several third-party solutions. It's mobile, and it's unlimited free updates. Every time we get a product, we add it in there, right? Except for a couple of premium products, everything's included in the SISE subscription, which I'll tell you about in just a second. So what are the results? Probably the best known are what happened during Harvey, Irma, Maria. The problem was we had historic flooding during Harvey and power outages all throughout the Southeast, U.S., Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico. It basically took billions of businesses out of power. I know you folks in the fuel sector had your own issues with fuel. What the SISE was able to do is to leverage information with the states, and our goal for that one was to expedite fleet movement around the country. And in a time when we had 50 states engaged at the same time, we didn't have a single reported delay. Versus back 2012, we had all kinds of delays for Sandy. So what the SISE did was coordinate with state government, remove the roadblocks, get the declarations and waivers, and get all that stuff out to the private sector within 10 hours of the declaration, which is great. We also worked during Harvey with housing. We had issues with housing for workers and citizens, but through our contacts in the private sector, we were able to get housing. Another one we did was location of transportation data. This is a new service we're looking to develop that monitors the movement of commercial trucks via their AVL systems. It's live. So you can see before on the top screen there, that's Houston before Harvey, and that's Houston after Harvey down below it. This is fantastic information and gives us real-time transportation movement so we can tell drivers, hey, here, these roads are open as of 30 minutes ago. This is one of several transportation products that came out of that. I won't go through all of these, but there's a new report I'll send you folks after this that'll tell you all about the results and impacts of the SISE, its partnerships, its committees, its people. It's been pretty impressive, and you can see these results went across a number of different areas. So why is this important to you? This is people working while you sleep. This is a beautiful thing about this community. It works 24/7. And the new things are popped up, and we put training together, and off we go. So during Blue Sky, the SISE has a process. We form use case committees, problem-solving committees. We have public and private sector involved in that. Then we work on use cases. So we pick the problems we're going to work on. Then we go through operational solutions. And those solutions take many forms. They can be dashboards, data sets, many different forms we take. And one use case could have 20 solutions. So, but we keep developing the use case. We file it in the parking lot. We go and repeat the process. But the trick is finding those problems. You've got to have government and you got to have state government and you all private sector working together. That's the unique part of this, is getting our states together with our private sector folks. Some new use cases we're working on just came up. Here's 2 new ones from October. We have, these are what we call FOIA use cases. How do we protect information for government and commercial entities from FOIA? So a new one here is a building blueprints. The building owners want to share blueprints with fire and EMS. And we now have a place to protect that data before they were sending it, and it leaks out and the protest groups get it and they're upset about something. Same thing with the rail sector. They have a new use case that we're going to be working on in 2020 where they share information with states when explosive materials go through a certain state, and that state gets hammered by protest groups for FOIA. We want access because we hate, the gas and oil industry, whatever, and they frickin' lay across the tracks sometimes, right? Or they'll be near the tracks. Very, very dangerous. So the SISE will help protect that information of the rail sector so state government can still get it but not take possession of it, which the minute they touch a document, it's now subject to FOIA. We have a huge use case library. In 2019, we developed a bunch. Sherry, one of the ones that I wanted to point out was number 9, right? This is one of the parking lot. But Sherry told me that in the fuels space, there's many different places I can go and get fuel. Some are 2 hours away, some are 4, some are 8. But would be nice if I knew that there was a long line at the 2 hour away location, I could go to the 4 hour with no delay, right? I called it our Disney World app, right? Because at Disney World, you go to Disney World and they tell you how long the wait is for a certain ride, right? And I thought, we need to build that for the fuel sector when they go to these fuel depots so we know what the delay is before you get there. So I want to thank Sherry for that. We've had a number of calls around it, and we ran it up the flagpole. The working group liked it. They thought it would be a good one to take on next year if we get enough support for it. So, but these are a number of use cases we have in planning and research, response. I'll send you the slide deck afterwards, and you can look through this. Security, active shooter. There's some cyber, a couple of cyber ones that are not on here yet. Training, analytics. There's a number of problems to be solved. Just a question of time and resources to do it. But anyway, we do manage this. We keep very close track on it, and all of these will end up producing some kind of solution as we go forward. So during dark sky days, we call it, the SISE works as a coordinator. This is an exact screenshot of Hurricane Florence. We worked very closely. We were directly connected to Persia Payne Hurley down in North Carolina, who was kind of running that as the lead state, but we were also working with the federal agencies, commercial entities, the EEI Ops Center, which was the electric sector operations center. We got information faster. We were able to push it out quicker, and we saved everybody a lot of time because our stakeholders are already there. So when we need to find out what's going on with the states, we have direct connect to our state liaison committee, and we can find out. They support each other, and we tap into that. So this is an example during black sky or dark sky days. We get information, we vet it, we get it out quickly, and we stay on top so we can coordinate people so we're not wasting a lot of time. So we also have a virtual help desk, which is really interesting because this is a group of people that kind of use either we're going to a secure chat model in 2020, but we've used text, we've used emails. It's a way of us resolving problems very quickly. That community is consisting of state operations people, industry, and federal operations people that kind of know each other, work kind of a tight-knit group. They're able to get in and get out and get the information very quickly. So this just looks at some of the participants that we are working with or have been working with for some time now, really since 2005, many of them. It is public, private, state, local, commercial. It's a heavy electric sector, but I think this is just an idea of the types of companies, the size, small, medium, and large. It's a very credible organization. It's very credible stakeholders and participants and supporters involved. So let me talk for just a second about how one can engage. We have a subscription program we've been developing for 2 years. We worked with the private sector. They formed a committee, and we looked at, okay, how do we, what's the business model? So DHS invests heavily into the SISE and have now moved the SISE underneath some federal labs so they can continue to sustain some of the bulk work. The private sector's role is really kind of sustain the program. So this group put together a subscription model. It's a simple individual model, all the individual vetted. So the current model looks like this. So there's a 12 months, about $100 a month, $1,200 a year. It's prepaid, and it basically entitles someone as a subscriber to everything in the SISE, right? So what does that mean? So what that means is you're going to get full access to the working groups, invitations to the meetings, unlimited updates, apps, tools that come out, discounts on premium solutions when we have them, SISE App Store, the Blue Sky, and the Dark Sky Day services. So it's a flat fee. As new products come out, fee doesn't change. And the reason they're doing that is they wanted to have something that was reasonable, something that was sustainable, and something that was flat, right? So that was the plan. And so they also looked at the cost justification model, which I'll circle back here. I wanted to show you. They put a group together and they were trying to figure, okay, what would this be worth if this saved one delay? Well, in the electric sector, one delay, I'll give you an example. 90 trucks were delayed at the Canadian border for 8 hours coming from Canada into the United States for power restoration in Pennsylvania. That one delay cost about 500 grand. Okay, very expensive. So they wanted to make sure that the subscription capability was enough and the cost was enough so that it was more than justify that. Of course, many, many, many times, right? Certainly lives saved is another one. One life saved is a really important one they look at too. What would it be worth if you could get on site or get your product or information quicker by 6 hours? Would that make a big difference in your business, right? Those have financial worth to it. The last one is, how about getting supplies sooner to your customers, right? That's one of the big issues that private sector, they want to restore their business, but they want to take care of their customers, okay? And so we know the services and some of the goods that are in the SISE can actually do that at least by 12 hours, maybe more. So that's how the program works. But we part of that is we pull inside the App Store all the things we create. It gets access to all of the Blue Sky Day services, as we talked about before. It provides information during alert. We provide alerts and updates, which we do, and those updates are cross-sector, so we include as many sectors as we have access to information, states and federal government as well. We provide a virtual help desk support through the SISE community. We do cross-sector coordination, so if comms needs to talk to fuel or fuel needs electric, we're able to bridge those gaps very quickly because our working groups are working all the time and they connect. And Sherry's kind of seen that. We've worked on numbers of issues like that cross-sector coordination. And probably the most important thing is that connection to the states. This was new. We started this early this year, and it's made a huge difference. The states want to help you solve the problem. They just don't know what you need. So the SISE provides an avenue for that to happen. So for the PMAA, we have an association program, which we'll tell you about, which basically DHS helps underwrite, and I'll show you what that is really quick. So for associations, they offer a 3-year option instead of $1,200 a year. It's 3 years for $300 a year or $900 total. Now, why are they doing that? DHS is subsidizing this rate through the end of December this year. So why? DHS wants to have people subscribe. One, that means they're interested in it, okay? It's one thing to provide an email. It's another thing to write a check. And commitment from the financial side says a lot. Number one. Number two, they've got new things they want to test with the early adopters. So they're hoping this program, working with us, we hope the program will get enough folks involved quickly, and then we can test some of the new things coming out and maybe build additional use cases as we go forward. At the end of the day, the idea was to create it like a no-brainer cost model that our subscription committee put together. So with Sherry and the association, our program works Sherry and PMAA and become an underwriter for the process. And so as a result, their members are getting a 1, 2, or 3-year deal. Three-year deal by far is the best that we could possibly go. So how do you do it? Very quickly, there's a simple website that you can go to, and you can, if you want, you can subscribe to it today. It's instant. So if you want to do it today, you'll have your account probably within 10 minutes. And we do this because, one, DHS is helping subsidize the rate, which is great. That'll be a 3-year fixed price. Secondly, we want to get, our goal is to get at least 15 fuel sector folks on board so that we can then form a work group around some of the fuel sector issues and start pursuing some of those issues that I heard about down in Nashville. Some of these things are pretty low-hanging fruit. Some of them we already have solutions for. But the reason 15 is a magic number is that provides the revenue to hire the part-time person that'll facilitate the group. It's very simple. It's just simple math. So, but we're very excited about this, and we're happy to have PMAA on board. I think at the end of the day, when we, I'm going to unmute. I'll unmute everybody here. When I was down in Nashville, Okay. When I was down in Nashville, had a lot of conversations with many folks from the fuel sector, and all kinds of ideas came out of that. And the trick is you need to form a committee. They got to decide which ones they're going to work on. And then you start working. And most of our work is done with conference calls in blue sky days. And when we need to get the states involved, we get them involved. So that's basically it. That's how the program works. That's the SISE at a glance. So everybody's unmuted. Open up for questions if you have any. I'll check the chat box as well. Okay. You folks are all unmuted, so feel free if you have a question, fire away. I have one on the chat. The question is how does this help? How does the SISE help us get information faster? So what we do is we work through our state liaisons, our federal liaisons, and the SISE actually has a strategic advisory committee made up of representatives from federal agencies. So if we have a request,
because I don't have a microphone on this thing.
If we have a request for information, we can send a text to that group of about 22 people and have an answer literally in 5 minutes. I know working with the states, they actually know the drill now, and they will actually send us information before we even ask for it because they know the problem, right? So getting information quickly is what the SISE was built for. So, and that's really through the community. It's the technology and the app store, all that stuff is nice, but it's really the people that make this thing sing and make it unique. Otherwise, it's just data and dashboards and like that. And it's a lot more than that, but that's the community. And that's really what people are joining is this community where they can get access to that information.
Hey, Tom, this is Sherry.
Yeah, Sherry, go ahead.
Okay. Will you talk a little bit about the Drive, the turn-by-turn app that you have and how it's different from what you could get just from the government?
Yeah, this is a great question. So the turn-by-turn solution was actually a federal government funded idea that came out of Harvey. FEMA asked US DOT to figure out a better way to route supply trucks into Houston. So they asked DOT to set this up. DOT set up a group of analysts and pulled together data feeds from everywhere they could. And sure enough, they were able to aggregate social media data, state data, county data, federal data, and come up with the current open road scenarios. And then they would publish a phone number. Suppliers would call it, and they'd get within every 10 minutes was updated. They'd get an update on where and tell us where you are now, where you're going, and they give you turn-by-turn directions. Well, that was done again during Irma, and we actually perfected it during Florence. And that's when the consortium got involved. So once we heard about it, we went down and met with federal motor carriers. They showed us how it worked. They said, Tom, you could help us. We need to market it, package it, and train it. I said, okay, that's what we do. So we basically formed a partnership with Alex Keenan at Federal Motor Carriers. And today, when we activate, there's a guidebook that you can get for free one of our members get it for free. And when DOT activates that center, we send our members a note, hey, the turn-by-turn center is open. Here's the phone number. They call it, and every 10 minutes, this center aggregates information from all these sources, Waze, live NOAA data, state data. It's amazing how they do this. Funded by the feds, but it's open to consortium SISE members, right? They have first responders, Red Cross, and consortium SISE private sector members. So we're very fortunate to do that. But it's a great thing, and of course now it's becoming we're petitioning them to make that a permanent service area that's on all the time, But right now it's really confined to when they activate it, which has been really usually through a big rain, driven storm. We haven't seen it much for winter, but certainly hurricanes and floods and things like that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it sure did. Thanks, Tom.
Yeah. I wish we had time to go through each of these because every one of these 100+ products that have been developed all have a story. And it all originates from a disaster. Okay. And it's interesting to watch these communities grow. Okay.
Thank you, Tom. This has been very helpful. Will you have
Very
this
good.
available so that we can share it with other people who weren't on the call?
Absolutely. I'll put the slide deck in a PDF, and I'll send an email, Sherry, to you. Okay, is that okay?
Okay. Yeah.
And then you can forward that out. And I'll do two things. I'll put the slide deck in there, and I'll also put that report that we just, for those that are interested, the kind of results and impacts report is very powerful.
Yeah,
So,
that's good.
anyway, we hope you all will take advantage of the offer that DHS has helped us put together. If you do, we're going to have right after Thanksgiving, we're going to organize a more detailed kind of get started webinar for those that are on board. And maybe from there we can launch kind of how we could do it. So we're excited to work with you guys that are ready to go. And I think, Sherry, that's it. I don't see any more questions. So I want to thank you all for joining. And this will conclude our webinar for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom.